Hey there, this is your orchestration tutor Thomas Goss, starting off the Patreon entries for the Orchestration Challenge of 2020, Lili Boulanger's D'un Jardin Clair, with this piece, with this entry, I should say, by Adam Jones. Adam, it's quite an intriguing sort of melange kind of an approach here that you've got with your orchestration. I think part of this is the sound sets that you're working with are I don't know, they're sort of like general MIDI, or they're not really the most realistic of sound sets. Like your oboe sounds a bit like a trumpet, and the harp is quite loud, and so on. So let me see if I can fix a few things for you, sort of steer you in the right direction. The first thing to think about, and this is probably just the app that you're working with, is that the layout is kind of strange. The first thing is that the first thing about that is that the stems, or excuse me, the bar lines should follow the groupings of the sections, right? So I don't know why, but this bar line here sort of cuts out. But the bar line should go all the way down to the bottom of this staff here, the bassoon, and then there should be a space. And then the next bar line should pick up and go all the way down to the tuba, and so on. Okay, then the ordering of the instruments needs to be different. For instance, the winds are okay, but the horns should be at the top, and then the trumpet should be under the horns, and then trombone and tuba, right? And all you need is just like one, here you say F horn 1 and 3, and I guess this is supposed to be second horn or something like that. Yeah, but then here you have 4-part harmony going across the two. So really it should be horn 1 and 2 and horn 3 and 4. And then the parts should overlap. Like the third horn should be the second high horn, right? See, so this C right in here would be a third horn part, just like you've got here, but it would be on another staff, right? That's just the way that conductors are used to reading it. Yes, you can do it this way with 1 and 3 at the top, but it's just mentally it's a bad practice for the orchestrator. I feel here there's nothing about this scoring that really requires that you do it that way. So it's just better for you to do it the traditional way, so that you develop your own scoring chops in a concert situation. All right, let's continue on. The next instrument that would be in order would be the timpani. The timpani would be right under the heavy brass, and then the glockenspiel would be under that, and then the harp would be just above the violins, right? So it's all sort of in a kind of a reverse order here. Then we've got violins. That's all good. Okay, so going back to here, one last comment, and that is on the wording here. You're saying flute 1, oboe 1, B flat clarinet 1, bassoon 1. But actually you're using 2 of each, aren't you? Right? This is 2 flutes. Here we have 2-part writing in the oboes, right? And same thing with clarinet and bassoon. So this is not flute 1. You could just say what you should do is you should write 2 flutes, 2 oboes, 2 B-flat clarinets, 2 bassoons. Or you could say flutes 1 and 2, oboes 1 and 2, right? That would be another way of dealing with it. So anyhow, so aside from all of that, let's talk about the orchestration now. Now, you're starting off very delicately, okay? And the the main critique that I've got here, aside from some balancing problems, which I'll talk about in a minute, the main critique that I've got here is you're doing a lot of dynamic mixing. In other words, in order to get the sound sets to work correctly, you are asking the players to play a lot of different dynamics at the same time, right? So you've got pianissimo in the first flute, you've got mezzo piano, mezzo forte, piano, you got mezzo forte on your pizzicato to make it stand out, and so on. Okay, so I really suggest that you watch, and other people who are kind of not aware of this aspect that I'm talking about, I'm really hoping that most people will watch this first video, so I'm going to make it just a trifle longer than the standard 10 minutes. Please go and watch my video on balance, okay? And part of my lecture about texture, balance, and function, okay? So, piano, mezzo piano, mezzo forte, it's not a ladder, okay? It's a Venn diagram with piano on one side and forte on the other. And the mezzo dynamics in the middle are moderating dynamics that you use to blend or on your way to go somewhere else. They are not default dynamics, all right? So, like, for instance, like mezzo, it just seems like mezzo dynamics are the default, right? You've got a lot of mezzo piano crescendo to mezzo forte and back again. That is a nothing kind of that is barely anything, all right? But because really it is piano, piano crescendo, piano diminuendo, forte crescendo, forte diminuendo. That is a whole world of sound, of nuance. And, using mezzo dynamics as a default just makes your music sound kind of gray, all right? It makes it sound sort of ordinary. And the true expressiveness of the instruments is never allowed to ring forth, right? Or, it's all about force and restraint, right? So if you are always moderating your force and moderating your restraint, then it's really hard for the orchestra to have any beautiful colors to it. Okay, so that is a well-known soapbox of mine, and I apologize for going on about it, but now let's see how all that applies. So you've got some interesting colors here, but like there's no sense of continuity. Like, you've got pizzicato cellos going on with, and you start off with the violins and violas and so on. Okay, but then that drops out almost immediately. And then it fills in, like you're sort of giving those roles over to the horns. Now, to make this all balance here, you would really need to have your horns soft, right? So it would be better for you to think about this in terms of having piano as your default, as your cushion, as your background dynamic, right? And then everything that needs to sort of stand out a little bit can either be piano crescendo or mezzo forte, all right? So you don't have to just make things, push out of the texture so much. Or you could even, like for instance here, if everything was piano, then this could be piano with a crescendo and then back again, right? So you could just avoid having to do all this mezzo stuff. All right, I do like this motion that you got in here. That's really cool, okay? But the way that you got this set up, nobody is going to hear it because, especially with brass coming in here at these dynamics, that is going to completely obliterate the low flute playing in here, right? See, this would be perfect if you had nothing but really soft strings in here. Then this little flute figure right in here, and then the second flute would be fantastic, right? But you have got so much. You got so much texture, so much complex texture, which I think is a cool thing. Like the bassoons and horns working together, and the clarinet and so on. So, if you really want a complex texture like this, and you want lines like this, then you have got to score them for stronger instruments. Like this would be perfect for, say, like clarinet, right? And if you have two clarinets, one of them can do the the figuration, and the other one can just do the harmony. Now here you've got oboe playing this solo, and here's a place where I would say, instead of just having it be a featured line, like you've got here, solo should be marked over the top, right? This is what they would call technique text, right? So you wouldn't want to put it down there with the dynamics. You'd want to put it on top of the entrance, okay? And you would also want to think, just generally speaking, about more careful slurring, right? So it's something you have to sing to yourself. Do you really want this to go dun 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 dun, right? You know, do you really want that to just go like that, or do you want to go da 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 da, or da da da, or do you want to go da, right? How do you want that slur to go? You really have to sing these things to yourself or think in your mind. Now here we have a slur across the bar, right? Which is, you know, I mean, it's something that I speak against from time to time, just because, like, there's no emphasis to the downbeat, right? It's like if you've got, and there is quite a marked downbeat here, right? And then here there is no slur, right? Da 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 da, right? Sorry, my voice has not woken up yet today. It's like 6 in the morning. So yeah, this is a situation where you really have got to think about bowing up and down, right? I've got a video on bowing. Go check that out. All right. But yeah, but here, like, down bow and then cut the slur right there, and then that would be up bow, right? Or vice versa, depending on the player. And here, this should be maybe one bow per bar, right? So slur 1 bar, slur 1 bar, slur 1 bar. Or you could go slur 2 beats and then 1 beat. So you're going down, up, right? Okay. Now, getting back to this. If this were all very soft string accompaniment, then this harp would stand out beautifully. But with the with all of the complex texture that you've got in here, then it's really going to obscure the delicacy of the harp. Okay. And one last thing, that is, do not put up arrow roll marks, arpeggiando marks, okay? You do not need to do that. The standard arpeggiando mark without an arrow at the top is what you want to use for harp. Sorry about this. The only exception is if you are also having a down roll, right? If you're rolling downwards, like I did in my arrangement. Sorry. In which case, you're telling the player, okay, well, now go up again, right? But the standard, the default roll is to roll up. So there is absolutely zero reason to use a roll mark with an arrow at the top. All right, it's just wrong. I don't know where that comes from. But do not use an up arrow roll unless there are down arrow rolls and you have to sort of correct it, right? Okay, because then the problem is you use it, and then me as a pianist, forget about being a harpist, I as a pianist will see the up roll and I'll say, wait, was there a down roll? Where is it? And that slows me down just that 1 second. I have to check the score, right? To see if there were any down rolls, because that would be the logical thing, right? Okay. All right, well, let's not worry about that. So here you've got this rising line, and then the piccolo takes it over, and then that way the oboe can drop down. I would say you don't even need this down here, right? This this octave right in here. Then we've got a little bit of piccolo coming in. I mean, you know, it's a very cool little arrangement from this point on. I would say the opening is just really problematic with the brass, you know, and just the way that it's dynamically scored. This right in here is not, like you could hear in the mock-up, it just did not come through, did it? And it's not going to come through in real life either, right? Just because of the dynamics marked and the overtones of the brass below and so on. Okay, and then we've got our little, you know, bump, 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 bum kind of stuff. You know, maybe throw in some staccato would be good. And then da 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 bum bum. Here's really where, like, you know, you'd have to decide about slurs as well. Do you really want it to be bum 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 bum, or do you want it to be da da da, or even da da, right? So anyhow, there's a lot to still think about in this arrangement. Yeah, I know. I was only going to give you 10 minutes, but here I've gone on for quite a bit, but that's okay. So there's a lot more to unpack about this. If I were your teacher and I was teaching this to you, you know, as part of a lesson, we would probably talk about it for a whole hour or two, right? And this would not be my first orchestration assignment for you. I would probably start you off like with maybe one of Grieg's lyric pieces, or a piece by Schumann, something like that, and we would start with the strings, and then we would like start adding wind instruments as soloists and then as a group and so on. All right, but anyways, this is really great first entry to the orchestration challenge. It's really, really great to get this from you. I'm really appreciative that because like you actually give me a lot to think about here. I mean, and I apologize that we did not have time to go over a lot of things, like for instance how the second flute line right in here is really more of a clarinet line, and how like it will basically just get drowned out. Like, I mean, you're covering these two pitches with a clarinet anyway, right? So yeah, and then this A is being covered by a second oboe. So essentially, you know, the softness of that lower flute is just going to be drowned out. So why put it in there, right? Especially with all of these kind of more butch instruments. You know, I mean, like for instance here you got F and F sharp in the trumpet, covering the same notes as the flute, right? And it doesn't matter that you're marking it mezzo piano or going down to piano or whatever. That flute is going to disappear from this earth, all right? So anyway, so just think about the strengths of the instruments a little bit more. Maybe do a little bit more score reading of some of these textures, I would say, in works by, like, say, Debussy, like the La Mer, the La Mer lectures that I am currently starting, and then also my lessons on Lili Boulanger herself. All right, so anyway, so check that out. Thank you so much for a great start to this round of Minim, like the first 20 bar entries for Patreon. Okay, and thank you so much for supporting. And now, on to the next entry.